The Olympic flame burns in the night sky. Tail end of the javelin event in the decathlon. Erky Newell in the background, you can't see him, but although you can see him on the screen in the centre left, or top centre of shot, tossing the javelin out beyond the 55-metre mark, waiting for the 5,000-metre second semi-final. Frank?
Sir?
Dieter Baumann in what we would call perhaps a moderately fast race 4 years ago. Thumped everybody with the 25-second last 200 metres and an incredibly fast last 300 metres. Has he still got it to do?
I think it's going to be very difficult for him. I think there's a certain type race that he has a very good chance in. I don't think he's as hungry as he was before. He's older now, he's married, he has one child, one-year-old child. And I think his perception has changed. He was, of course, silver medalist in '88 in Seoul. He was the gold medalist in '92. And it's hard to imagine that he can be as hungry as he was before. I think also last summer he was a little sickened, perhaps, by the performances of the Africans. And this year it's been even worse. Nobody's run quite as fast as Gabriel Selassie has this year, of course, but there's been a slew of athletes running under 13 minutes. And even Bob Kennedy from the United States has run under 13 minutes.
So there is the lineup. Dieter Baumann from Germany, the Olympic champion. Cormac Finnerty, Molina, Nuttall, Tom Nyariki, watch for him, the Kenyan, who won the Kenyan trials. Also there, Asefa Mezagebu, who won the World Junior Cross Country Championship in 1995 at the age of only 16 years. Stefano Baldini of Italy, who ran in the 10,000 metres. And this man, Venuste Nyongabo, member of the Tutsi ethnic group from Burundi. Tired of watching Morcelli's back, he's decided to move up to 5,000. Shadrach Hoff from South Africa impressed us all mightily, I think, in the first round. Ismail Skier from Morocco. The Italian is Baldini. The Spaniard is Enrique Molina. That is Mezagebu. The American Jim Spivey. From Algeria, Aissa Belaoud. And this man, Tom Nyariki, burst on the scene this season, had been virtually unheard of, unknown to perhaps anybody except the agents outside Kenya before his sub-13-minute run at Rome behind Salah Hissou. Went back to Kenya and at altitude, won the Kenya Olympic Trials race. Cormac Finnerty ran 13:18 last year, hasn't been in that sort of form, got through here as a fastest loser. And on the inside, the Olympic champion, Dieter Baumann, best of all time last year, just outside 13 minutes.
Yeah, one of the features of the 5,000 also is that probably the best 5,000 metre runner this year in the world is Salah Hissou, who chose to run the 10,000 metres. He's 12:50, 12:51 for 5,000 metres, ran a 3:33 1500, and amazingly he chose not to run in this one.
I'm not sure how amazing it is. He kept his options open up to the last minute. There were four nominations from the Moroccans for the 5,000 metres. I suspect that Hissou stayed in there until he gauged his condition after the 10,000 metres, and at that point decided, a bit like Haile Gebrselassie, that it had taken too much out of him and that there was no point. So he gave his place on the team to one of his compatriots, but he was in there from early on.
I think perhaps he should have chosen just to run the 5,000 metres rather than the 10. He had a clear chance of winning this one.
I think that would be a view, that he would have a better chance at the 5,000. We met him down in the mixed zone on the way out last night. He was talking to a few North African journalists, and he was one very happy-looking man. He was very content with himself. Didn't seem to be bothered that he hadn't been running in those 5,000 metre heats.
The Moroccans, of course, have a really good representative group here. In this one, they got Ismail Sagir, who ran 7:30 last year for 3,000 metres behind Moses Kiptanui in Monte Carlo. He's run very fast over 5, as well as have the other two performers in the first semi-final, who looked very, very good.
Skier, in fact, has run under 13 minutes 6 seconds 4 times, which is some accumulation over a couple of seasons. Cormac Finnerty up near the front in what is still a relatively slow pace. Ismail Skier on the outside there, Venuste Nyongabo, and behind him the tall figure of Tom Nyariki. Shadrach Hoff in the centre of that shot. Skier, some dispute as to whether his name, which we have known for the last several years as Smail, but his name, I believe, is actually Ishmael.
That's your department, Tony. Dieter Baumann is, I love to watch close-ups of his face. He's so focused. He's one of those rare athletes who in championships knows how to perform, knows how to keep his eye on the ball. And just watching him there, you can see him looking down at the screen. Early days yet, but he's very aware of what's going on. He's checking what's happening behind him. He's even got his vest cut up short. These Germans take care of every little detail.
Very thorough. Cormac Finnerty has obviously decided on a game plan which is based on doing what he wants to do, running at the pace he wants to run, rather than having the pace dictated for him by the rest of the field. And with the rest of the field, the pace can be quite erratic.
The third fastest loser in the last heat was 13:40.9 for Stefan Franke. A clear chance for Cormac if he could get the pace somewhere around there. It's not very quick. It's 66-second laps for 5,000 metres. That's something Cormac is capable of doing, but I don't think he's really done anything with the pace. I think he's merely gone to the front to avoid trouble, and we're still clicking along at a very slow pace, much slower than the first heat.
It is far slower. It is far slower than the first heat.
That's 15-minute pace almost for 5,000 metres.
The minor placings in the decathlon after the 9th event. Big field, 40 athletes turned up yesterday morning to contest the decathlon. Yeah, Cormac is running out in front, but all he is doing is exposing himself, number one, staying out of trouble certainly. But the difficulty is running at that slow pace, as you would say, Frank, is that if somebody decides to accelerate and draws the field with him, he'll be swamped up and find himself down at the back of the field in less than 30-40 metres.
Yeah, that is one of the features of distance running, that if you don't get right on the first person to go by you, then you could have 5, 6, 7, and even watch Niall Bruton. I think that was one of his problems. He just left so many people come round him that I think by the time he got out of the back as he came to the bell, he just didn't feel he could do it from back there.
Watch Miles here, the very short man beside Niall Gabo. He's just moving up, edging up towards third place there. If you watch him head on, he always seems to have a sort of what I would describe as a list to port. He's sort of leaning inside. It's a style of running. I can remember one or two Irish runners who used to be like that. That is he. And we're lapping now at 75-second pace, and that is, well, dare I say it, we would expect the ladies to be running faster than that.
Yeah, that's shocking pace, really. I mean, when there was a clear target of 13:40 as the fastest loser, and even the quickest fastest loser was 13:31 almost, there was a clear chance for a number of people to come through from this race, and it's disappointing really to see no one taking it up. But I think it is illustrative of the fact that this year's 5,000, unlike many have gone before, features a number of serious kickers in the last lap, and this race could turn out to be crazy over the last 2K.
By the way, when we say that, I don't think we're pointing the finger at all at Cormac Finnerty, because Cormac actually must have a bit of a problem because he hasn't been anything like the same form this season as he was last. Last year he had a couple of very good races, ran 13:18, which is very fine. This year he hasn't been in that sort of form, so it's difficult to expect him to know what to do, having got through the first round.
Yeah, he made a very big jump last year in his career, and you know, he will get back from here. He's had some problems this year, and therefore he's not running as well as he has done. But he should know that because of that, he's not capable of getting through, I wouldn't think, against this company, and I would think he should pick it up some. Moroccans even getting a little anxious, which is strange to see again. But I wish Cormac would take it up a little bit. There's some really good kickers. Even go back to the very back and you see Jim Spivey, the American, who's a 3:31 1500 metre runner, bronze medalist in the World Championships in 1987. This is an intimidating field to be sitting on you.
Indeed it is. Dieter Baumann, the Olympic champion, behind him. Venuste Nyong'abo. The big Australian there with the dark glasses is Julian Painter. Two Spaniards at the rear of the field, Manuel Pancorbo and Enrique Molina. Stefano Baldini of Italy, who ran at the 10,000 metres, is there, with just beside Jim Spivey.
Yeah, the pace has slowed up even more now. 6:04 at 2K, which is well outside 15-minute pace. Not well outside, but 10 seconds outside 15-minute pace for 5,000 metres. It's getting slow. I couldn't imagine it could get slower. Interesting to see what it's going to be at the very end. He looks very comfortable, Tony. I must say that his form looks very well. Perhaps he's got something we don't know about.
We'll wait to see. Jim Spivey now gets a little impatient with this and comes up, has a little chat, I think, with Baumann. turns around to see what's going on behind him and goes up and joins Finnerty. I'm not entirely sure, given that Spivey is a kicker, I'm not entirely sure what his motive is, but Bauman just plods along behind these two, Niangabo and Skier, just shadowing him on his shoulder, and Tom Nyariki, who must be finding the pace awesomely slow. And quite difficult for him with that long stride tucked in the middle of that bunch.
Looking at the field, another athlete I would pick out as potentially a person who should go to the front and do some work is John Nuttall. He's run 13.16, 13.17 this year. Capable of making this field hurt, certainly capable of testing them, and certainly capable of running 13.40, which would be a qualifying time.
It's hard to know what Spivey intended to do by going up there, because all he's done now is expose himself. Here he goes into the lead now, begins to inject a bit of extra pace into it. Bauman goes past Cormac Finnerty. And this is the danger point for Cormac Finnerty now. The field is in danger of sweeping past him. 6 laps to go in the 5,000 metres, second semi-final.
Well, you notice that Bauman, when he has moved inside now, I thought he was going to stay out on Spivey's shoulder, because now he has exposed himself, because if someone comes and takes the pole position behind Spivey, Bauman's now on the inside and blocked. So I would have thought Dieter would have stayed a little bit outside of lane 1, right on Jim Spivey's shoulder, and Spivey's picking it up even more. Watch this. I
suspect that Bauman just wants to get through this semi-final and get a game plan together for the final. I think he must reckon that he has the pace, speed and tactical ingenuity over the last 2 laps to cope with any situation that comes along.
Well, Bauman is very good to focus, as I said before. He will know that there's a certain race that suits him, and I think, as we've seen in these 2 semi-finals, maybe it illustrates the fact that the race will be run to suit Dieter Bauman. They've all been slow. Again, they're all big kickers are going through to the final. Maybe it will be slow for the first 2 or 3K, and if it is, Dieter Bauman is certainly capable of running the low 7:30s for 3,000, and he should be capable of staying right in there with them.
But for a man who regular, there goes Smail Skier now from Morocco. With 5 laps to go, Skier goes up on the shoulder of Bauman, not intent of taking the lead, and shadowing him, Niangabo, who must find this pace painfully slow, given his history of running week after week after week of ultra-fast 1500s. Well, this would be exactly what Niangabo would have hoped for. His first major, in fact, his second 5,000 ever. Spivey pushes it even harder now, but for Niangabo, he would have not wanted to come here and run 3 hard 5,000s, being his second, third, fourth 5,000 metres. So this is perfect for a converted 1,500 metre runner. And of course, they do have the opportunity of a 24-hour, a 48-hour rest before they come out for the final. But the pace really has hotted up. 1:3.59 going up there is Enrique Molina, and coming up from the back, the Algerian who's been very quiet, Issa Balaus. That's him in green and white. He's come up into 3rd place. Finnerty still alert, still with the mind of what he's going to do, and he goes out into the lead again. What is he trying to do? Is he trying to slow it down? Is he trying to maintain the pace? There are 4 laps to go, and Finnerty is now running at quite a brisk pace. The last lap 65 seconds, and when you remember that some of the earlier ones were 75 seconds, Cormac running a strange one, injecting an awful lot of pace now, so much so that Niangabo is wondering what to do. Very brave move out of Cormac. What we were hoping he would do about a lap or 2 ago, he's done it now. Clearly he thought that it would be too far from home to go with 6 laps to go, and he's gone with 4 to go. Very brave move. I like to see this. It's all part of the learning experience. Well, you want to see an athlete come away from a championship with confidence. I mean, Cormac is not in the condition he has been in last year, but you want to have him come away from here believing he's capable of coming back next year to the World Championships in Athens and performing very, very well. He's still very alert. He's looking around, he's checking what's going on. The big long stride of Tom Nyariki on the inside. Niangabo. Bauman very, very alert. 3 laps to go in the 5,000 metres, and Cormac Finnerty out in front from Venuste Niangabo and from Enrique Molina of Spain. Molina of Spain going up on the shoulders of Niangabo and watching everything and running wide, and quite content to run wide with that little list to port, Ismail Skier. And several people cut off. Jim Spivey has been dropped, so too the Australian Julian Painter. Spivey has been dropped right off the back of that pack. Yeah, I think the pack is down to 11 now. Cormac is, I mean, he did a 62-second lap there. He's running just as fast now. I would expect him to come through and somewhere around that. That's 2:04 for 800 metres. This is very, very brave running from Cormac Finnerty. it's quite astonishing, in fact, given his form, his lack of 1500-metre form this season, his lack of a really good, fast 5,000 metres, that he's able to mix these different paces. I think there's a risk now as Nian Gabo goes on.
Allowed himself to be swallowed there, moved a little bit too far off the curb, and it was taken on both sides by Nian Gabo and the Spanish runner.
But he's fighting back. Less than 2 laps to go with the 5,000 metres, and now out in front it is Nian Gabo and Enrique Molina. Smile Skier is next, and Tom Nyariki. And Finnerty is still in there with them as the Slovakian. Up in front, and Venuste Nian Gabo not having any of that.
They're still not going fast enough to really test each other. There's still a group there. Cormac Finnerty's on the back of it still. A group of looks like 10 or 11 people. Top 6 to qualify. They are starting to run fast now, but they're going to have to really move in the last 2 laps to get inside the fastest loser times from the previous heat.
I don't think we'll see fastest loser time. Cormac is just tailed off towards the back of that group. He made brave moves. They weren't enough. Tom Nyariki is in front. Nian Gabo second, and here comes Baumann with a big charge up from the back. Skier is next. Baldini of Italy is running a great race. He's still in there. But going out after the Kenyan, Tom Nyariki, out goes Dieter Baumann on the shoulder of Venuste Nian Gabo. Skier is coming up. Enrique Molina is there. There are 7 in that leading group. Regrettably, Cormac Finnerty is not one of them. He's tailed off. Out in front, the Kenyan, the man from Burundi, Dieter Baumann, Skier. And now there are 6. And Shadrach Hoff, surprisingly, is not one of those. The Algerian. And Skier is being caught for pace. Out in front, Nyariki looks very, very strong. Nian Gabo is next. Baumann is next. Molina, Skier, and the Algerian Aissa Belaut. These are the 6 who go through. I question if there will, in fact there is no question, there will not be a fastest loser from that semi-final. The fastest losers will come from the first semi-final. The 6 we saw will go through to the final. Surprise perhaps that Mesegebu of Ethiopia was not able to stay with them. Jim Spivey was tailed off. The second Spaniard was tailed off. Cormac Finnerty came in about, what, Frank, about 10th?
About
10th or 11th.
Position.
He made a brave move. I don't think that race would have done him too much harm at all.
I think he's going to come away from this with a lot of confidence. I mean, he obviously wasn't up to it today in terms of his fitness this year in comparison to last year, but he ran like a person who knew what he needed to do.
But I'll tell you something, Frank, I like the look of Tom Nyariki.
Nyariki went to the front there, ran a 55-second last lap, well within himself. Of course, so did Nian Gabo, and I thought Baumann, he looked comfortable, but I don't think he looked exceptionally comfortable. Probably be tested in the final. I'd love to see him run well again, of course, but Nyariki, I mean, he really does have turn of pace in the last lap.
And he has a huge raking stride as well. See how little Ismail Skier is having difficulty staying with this pace over the last 50 metres. Good run by the Spaniard, Molina.
Yeah, you know, he does a lot of looking around there, makes you think he could go quite a bit faster, but very often that looking around doesn't really illustrate the fact that they're capable of going so much quicker.
The sixth finisher, Belaut of Algeria, a 13.8 performer last year, don't forget. He went out in the heat of the last Olympics, didn't finish in the World Championships 1993, but here he comes through in the last 100 metres to take the 6th and final qualifying spot. Nyariki looks round, sees Baumann, and Baumann smiles at him, and that's over at the last bend.
Now, if Baumann got this in the final, it would be like all his birthdays came on one day. Too much to hope for, of course. I mean, you've got to imagine it's going to be faster. Very surprised that these boys got away with a 14.03 5,000 metres. Clearly, I would say gives them advantage in the final, I would think, since the other heat ran so fast, especially since they ran 7:50 for the last 3,000 metres of that one.
I think we're going to see a little bit at least, of team running from the Kenyans in the final. I don't think they're going to. They'd have been burned by Dieter Baumann 4 years ago, and if they can avoid it, they're not going to let that happen again.
No, clearly here you've got 3 Kenyans, all from the same tribe, all Kalenjin, all with the same agent, so they're the tendency is that they will run as a team. But the strange thing about them is, as we said already, is that they are kickers, all three of them, and I wonder who is going to sacrifice themselves.
Mightn't necessarily be a sacrifice. You run a team game for X number of laps, and then it's each man for himself. It doesn't necessarily have to be a sacrifice, as long as you have a game plan and you operate according to the game plan, with each individual member taking up his share of the pacing load.
Very hard to convince a kicker of that, though, Tony. Those guys like to sit back and do nothing, don't they?
Like you.
I don't deny it.
Oh yeah, if you can do it, it's the way to win a race. It is certainly the way to win a race. Finnerty's time, 14:8.88. He couldn't have done better off the early pace. I mean, as we said, the early pace was around 15 minutes, outside 15 minutes even for some time.
Look at John Nuttall there. He's an athlete in a very similar position to Cormac Finnerty. The difference was that Finnerty had the confidence and the conviction to go to the front and try to do something about the race.
And Shadrach Hoff, 14:16. Hoff, we would have thought, would have been running in that about 13:20 or thereabouts.
Yeah, it's one of his first major championships. It's not his first, I suppose. Clearly he wasn't, I would imagine at that rate he's not used to the stage he's on. And looking at his teammate Ezekiel Seping yesterday in the 800 metres, first Olympic Games ever, runs an astonishing 1:42 New South African record, and really was a major factor in that race. And I thought South Africans were going to be so encouraged to come here and perform well. They won medal, of course, in the last Olympics in Barcelona, and I thought they were going to take quite a few here. Ocker Brits in the pole vault doesn't manage to clear a height, goes out, and you know, the South Africans were predicted to do a little bit better than they've been doing.
Indeed.